guys, welcome back to the Bass Tutor. My name is Tyler Fry and I'm the Bass Tutor. So guys, today we are continuing my top 5 favorite fall baits for each different type of lake. And today's type of lake that we're going to go into is grass lakes. Lakes that have a lot of grass on them and a lot of vegetation and things of that nature. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump on into it. But the first one I wanted to start off with is kind of an honorable mention for me. And the reason for that is I really don't use this lure all throughout the year, but this early part of fall right here, there's still a pretty good bite on if you can get the fish to bite it before the cold fronts start moving in. And that's a frog. A frog is a phenomenal lure to be able to move it across the tops of grass, around laydowns, brush, stuff like that. And, they're just super great baits this time of year to mimic frogs and bluegill and baitfish and just all types of different things. So I wanted to clarify that for everybody who wondered why it wasn't on my list. But typically, once the first couple of cold fronts start coming through, that's whenever I stop throwing the frog as much and I start moving into these baits. For me, a frog is basically a summertime bait. Unless you're in Florida, then you could probably throw it for quite a while longer than what everybody else does. But that is my honorable mention. So now let's get into the top 5 favorite baits. The number 1 top bait for me throughout the entirety of the fall is probably going to have to be the chatterbait. This one right here is just the original Z-Man chatterbait in green pumpkin. Green pumpkin and black and blue are super great colors, and sometimes I'll throw in a white. And these are just dominators on grass lakes, especially when there's a little chop on the water and a little wind. You can throw these things out there, you can rip them, you can yo-yo them, you can just swim them. And they create a super great presence, just like something like a crankbait would or something of that nature. One of my favorite ways to use it this time of year is when the fish start getting suspended. I like to cast it out in about 10 foot of water, stay parallel with it, put the butt of my rod behind my elbow, and then just rip it up out of that dying grass, reel down, rip it up. And and I like to find the healthiest grasses possible, obviously. I said dying grass, typically the grass will start dying this time of year in most areas of the country, but I like to find the healthiest grass as possible because typically it seems to me like the fish stay there longer. So the second bait on the list is going to have to be a swim bait. On those calm, slick days, whenever the wind's not blowing that much, something like this Kitech or this Gambler Big Easy are just great options. As the months start going by, the swim bait just starts working great. And I'll start off the fall throwing this Gambler Big Easy typically. And then once the fall starts getting a little cooler and the months are getting colder, then I'm going to move down to this little bit smaller Kitech. It just seems like they like to chase a little bit smaller bait as the fall progresses and gets colder. And a lot of the times your fisheries are just going to have smaller bait fish, and that's whenever that 3.8 Kitech really does a great job. So the Rattle Trap is another phenomenal lure that I like to utilize this time of year, especially for the suspended fish. Just like the chatterbait, I like to put the butt of my rod under my forearm, and I like to rip it up out of that grass, reel down, rip it up. And and there's a ton of different variations that you can play around with. You can just straight retrieve it, and as it ticks the top of the grass, you can kind of pop it. There's a ton of different variations. But especially as the fall gets cooler, that's when I like to just do the yo-yoing. A slow yo-yo just seems to work, especially in the grass lakes. And while I don't get to throw these a ton because I live in Kentucky where there's not a ton of grass, from my experience, the Rattle Trap is a super phenomenal lure, especially as the months go on. Summer and fall are my favorite times to throw them. So there comes a point, just like whenever we were talking about the deep clear lakes, when these lures, they kind of get pushed to the side. As you start getting closer to wintertime, you need to start throwing more of a finesse approach. And by no means do I mean that you can't throw all of these all throughout the fall. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just telling you an example of when I would especially start using this. And probably my favorite one to do on the list is one that a lot of people don't like to do. But I like to break out the old sissy stick, and I like to go around and start throwing wacky rigged Senkos. Any type of stick bait will work. It doesn't have to be the Gary Yamamoto version if you don't want to pay that much money. But, you know, any type of stick bait, the Yumdinger is a great option. There's a ton of these things on the market now. Cream makes one, Zoom makes one. You know, there's a lot of options. But besides the Gary Yamamoto, the Yumdinger is probably one of my favorites. And so I like to put this thing on some light lines, skip it around docks, work it on the edges of grass lines, work it around hardwood cover. And it's just a super phenomenal presentation, and it just gets bit all year long. And so regardless of what time of the fall it is, if I'm fishing a grass lake, a wacky rig Senko or a Texas rig Senko will be on. Last but not least, I'm going to go into the Texas rig. That's right, something like this Jackal Archelon or this Zoom Baby Brush Hog. I'm going to start working these things a lot more around that grass. You know, I'm going to punch it into whatever grass is left, you know, flip it around the outside edges, or I'll just drag it around. You know, this is a super great bait. You can just throw it out there, you can cast it, you can drag it along. It's just like the video that we talked about a few videos back about the Texas rig being so versatile. It's an extremely versatile presentation, and you can use it in a ton of different situations. You can work it around the grass, the docks, you can flip it into the brush, laydowns. If there's brush piles on your lake, it's a super great time of year to start utilizing these presentations to start fishing down in those brush piles. If you watch the Bassmaster Opens at Sam Rayburn, you'll see that a lot of people were doing that. And you know, another presentation that was used, especially in that tournament, was a big football head jig. Now, I typically don't throw the football head jig as much on grassy lakes just because of the head shape. I actually use what's known as a D&L Archie head jig. But, you know, any type of jig will work. And, you know, the jig kind of goes hand in hand with the Texas rig. But I feel like I get more bites on the Texas rig around where I live on grass lakes because they're typically a little bit more clear. But as the water dirties up, you know, then I'm going to start throwing that bigger profile jig a lot. And, you know, it just kind of varies. But those are my top 5 favorite baits that I love to use during the fall on grass lakes. You know, regardless of watercolor, it seems like these are my go-tos. Now, obviously, sometimes I'll mix in the frog. I'll mix in square bill and work it over tops of the grass. There's a lot of different things that I utilize, but these are my top 5 favorite baits. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I know it's pretty quick, but I hope this helps you get out there on your favorite grass lake and you're able to get out there and catch some giant fall fish. You know, they're getting fat this time of year and they're really starting to get ready for winter time. And fall can just be an absolute grind of a bite sometimes. But a lot of the times you're able to get out there and you can get on some really good bags if you know what you're doing and what you're looking for. And if you can find what type of cover that the fish are relating to. And so I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave me a like and a subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure to comment down below your favorite fall lures. And you can ask any questions or whatever you want to do down there in the comment section. I get back to all those. And so I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And make sure to get out there and wet a line.